Welcome to the second episode of Out Loud, the Selective Mutism podcast. This is Chelsea.
This is Anne, Chelsea's mom.
And today we're going to talk about going back to school with Selective Mutism. Thank you so much for subscribing and downloading and listening to our first episode. It's really awesome to see people reaching out on Instagram. People are DMing me and sharing their experiences, and it's so fun to read them, and it's encouraging to hear that people liked our first episode.
And you actually did a great job of getting us on several different sites.
Yeah, we're on a bunch of different podcast apps now. So we're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Deezer, Stitcher, Radio Public, radio.com. There's a bunch. So if whatever podcast app you use, we're probably on there now. We're going to be posting on Fridays since we posted the first one on Friday. So just make sure you're subscribed and following us so you know when the new episodes come out. So I started kindergarten in 1999. I went to a private Catholic school. I was not diagnosed when I started kindergarten with selective mutism, but it was pretty clear that there was something going on with anxiety problems, since I wasn't talking to other kids in preschool, and at the start of kindergarten I wasn't answering questions and participating in class, basically.
Couldn't do attendance.
Right, attendance was terrifying way to start the day.
I think it was about, I want to guess that it was about November when your kindergarten teacher approached me about that there was something not quite right and that we should have you evaluated.
I can't believe they waited that many months.
Well, I think in the beginning you usually still get, oh, she'll warm up, or it's early in the year. And then, like you said last time, too, the criteria is the first month of school doesn't really count. Right, so the first month
doesn't count anyway. It's just funny that the teacher, wouldn't, 3 months of me not saying anything before she said anything to you. We're going to talk about some different challenges that happened in kindergarten. I did have, one friend in kindergarten. I know I made more than one. Let's see. At first I had just one.
Right.
And I'm still friends with her today. We were both quiet in kindergarten, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how we became friends? We always argue about how we became friends.
I think it was right from the beginning of the school year. I think Dad actually met her mom at school, and they kind of bonded. And then based on that, she worked at the school, so she would always get you two together or talk to the teachers and then get you guys together as a pair in the classroom. You ended up in the same class, so it actually worked out great because then she was at the school every day and just could kind of keep an eye on you or let me know what was going on at school.
Right.
Behind the scenes.
She was very friendly, and she was always really helpful.
Yeah, so she just kind of took you under her wing right away and looked out for you.
Yeah. So I had at least one friend that I could talk to at school. So just to clarify, I was speaking at home and not at school. I guess one-on-one with my one friend I would talk at school as long as no one was listening.
Right.
And other than that, I was silent at school.
And not just silent, well... Yes, silent, but also all the issues that go along with that.
Right. I had a lot of anxiety about school. Attendance was big, so I just remember, waiting for my name to be called and, trying to prepare myself, and it would just, get to me, and I couldn't get the words out. And then from that day on, it just felt like I was not going to talk for the rest of the day because I couldn't do attendance, or I couldn't answer other kids or respond when teacher called on me.
So I do remember talking about that to the teacher and then trying different, instead of you verbally having to respond, I remember us talked about raising your hand, and I can't remember, could you do that? Because I think we had to work on that too.
There was a bunch of, even nonverbal behaviors that I felt too afraid to do, I don't know, even just playing with other kids was a no. I couldn't get up and use the bathroom or get up and sharpen a pencil. like anything that would draw attention to me, I wouldn't do.
And you had a pretty good size class too. It was private, but you still had, I think, about 19 kids in your class.
How did you find out that I had selective mutism, or how did you find out that that diagnosis exists?
In preschool, I mean, we knew something was up. I just thought you were shy, kind of fussy as an infant and toddler, lots of tantrums. So we kind of knew there was something just about your temperament or your disposition. Once the teacher suggested to me that we should get an evaluation, I remember she met me outside one day when I was picking you up, and she recommended that we have you evaluated. And so I just remember saying to her, "So you think there is a diagnosis there?" And she said, "Oh, yes." So that was the turning point where I decided, okay, we need to do something. Mm-hmm. I actually would be up till like midnight Googling, trying to find something that fit your symptoms. So I actually did remember Googling extremely shy child, and I actually found myself online, selective mutism. I remember reading the symptoms and going to tell your father, "Oh my God, I found it. Like, it fit you perfectly. The freezing body, no eye contact, not wanting attention on yourself." So from there, we went to getting a consult at Boston Children's. And that's where you were diagnosed.
At Boston Children's, did you have to find someone who had experience with selective mutism?
I don't think I did at that point. It was in the pediatric psych, and it was just an evaluation. I know you saw a couple of people that day. She was a specialist in childhood anxiety.
Okay. I was just wondering if you, it sounds like you found the diagnosis yourself, so I was wondering if you, suggested it to, a doctor or something, or if they just agreed with you.
No, we didn't really say. We just took you in, did the eval, but the end of that visit that day, I did say to her I had found that online, but she came out with, I remember after they met with you individually, her telling me, that you were able to describe to them, like, your heart beating, getting sweaty, not being able to talk, the words were stuck in your throat. She said you were really able to define or describe what you were experiencing. And so then I said to her, "Oh, well, I did find this online." And she's like, "Yes, that was one of your diagnoses."
I do have a lot, I feel like I can remember a lot of kindergarten, probably because a lot of it was not traumatic, but actually maybe traumatic, but just really anxiety provoking. So I remember being really anxious and having those kinds of reactions to kids, noticing that I wasn't talking and calling me out. And I don't know, going to recess and not participating, just kind of standing there because I didn't want attention on me.
I remember it was always a tough day if your friend was out sick or she didn't go to school that day. That was always tough, trying to have a backup friend.
Yeah, I didn't have backup friends.
You did make other friends that year, but for most of especially the beginning part of the year, it was just that one little girl. When we took you to Boston, people might be wondering, well, what did we tell you and how did you feel about that?
I don't really remember.
We used to talk about it. So we just talked about it out in the open. I tried to get you to talk about your feelings, and you were very hopeful. You thought they were going to help you, and so you wanted to go for the appointment. And I remember when we came, we just explained that they were going to help you be able to talk when you wanted to talk. And I remember we were coming back in the car, and you were in the back seat, and I think we were halfway home, and you just said, "Oh, well." And Dad and I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And you said, "Well, I guess that didn't work."
Oh.
And we were like, "What do you mean?" So you thought
it was an instant fix.
Yes, there was going to be some sort of instant, go see the doctor, and you were all better.
And it's not. It takes years and, putting yourself in, uncomfortable situations. I don't know. I pushed myself through presentations and, I've thrown up in front of people. I've fainted in front of people so many times. I don't know. There's no, instant fix. And I did go on medication, and that wasn't instant either.
Yeah, that was in second grade that we ended up trying some medication.
Right. So I was just going to talk about kindergarten graduation because I just remembered that me and my one friend, we went up and got our diploma together.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't sure that you'd be able to go when they called your name.
Yeah.
And so her mom suggested that the two of you could go together.
Which was nice. I kind of felt like it was just for me, but she always says that she was shy too in kindergarten. I don't know, but it definitely helped to have someone to walk up with and get the diploma. I had a really good first grade teacher who got to know me. I guess we talked about it a little bit in the first podcast episode.
I think we mentioned Miss Kim.
Right. So we just talked about how she came over before school and got to know me during the summer, and she built rapport, and I really think that's important, and it's like key to build trust, because I think with kids who have selective mutism, trust is like necessary. They're not going to talk to you unless there's like trust and there's a history of like a supportive relationship.
So I think how that came about was actually I think maybe we found out who your teacher was going to be for first grade, and maybe it was through your friend's mom. But we found out who your first grade teacher was, and it just so happened one of our neighbors was personal friends with her. So we invited her over for, I think it was like just afternoon, and sat out in the backyard, had some lemonade, had some snacks, and then you and Miss Kim went up to your bedroom so you could show her your room, and I let you just go up alone. And you stayed up there for maybe half an hour or so, and just got to know each other, showed her all your toys and things like that. But that was pivotal, I think. And
I think, yeah, it takes away part of the mystery of going back to school when you already met your teacher, and it's not like another thing that you can't predict. Like, you're going into school knowing your teacher. Obviously, that's probably not possible for a lot of people, to have your teacher come to your house and, like, hang out with you. But I would say, like, if you can, like, make a meeting. I know a lot of schools would let you have meetings before school, and you can at least meet your teacher once before the first day.
Yeah, and just maybe even on the playground. If you can't go into the school, maybe even on the playground for half an hour just to just to meet each other in that environment.
So I started going to therapy in first grade, or was it second grade?
Once we got your diagnoses, it was first grade. But it took us probably like 6 months maybe to find somebody. I had a list through our insurance company of people that were known to treat SM, but unfortunately there was one in the next town, and when I called they were full. She wasn't taking any more patients. So then I just started trying to find someone who did childhood anxiety. And we did end up finding somebody who had treated an SM child before and said she had had success. So we went with her.
I remember like playing with her. I feel like I kind of like had some resentment towards her just because she was like pushing me to talk and stuff. But she definitely did a good job, and she built rapport before like pushing any, I don't know, challenging me at all.
I remember feeling in the beginning that it was kind of silly that I'm paying for this, because you would go in and just do board games and play, which at the time I didn't really see the benefit to that. I'm like, I'm paying for her to go there and play. But then she explained to me she's really building trust, building a relationship, and she said sometimes she would cheat to see if you would correct her or if you would just let her get away with it. So she was challenging you in little ways.
Right, she built it up. And it's interesting, like, look, now that I do ABA, like applied behavior analysis, so I am a therapist for kids with autism, and that is definitely necessary, building rapport and trust before you start putting demands on a child. One of my like strongest memories from that, I remember, I guess I was already talking to her, and maybe I was talking a little bit in school because she was working on my voice volume with me, and I was like being too quiet. I've always been quiet. People still tell me I'm quiet. But she was having me read a book, and she was playing music on like a boombox, and she kept turning the volume up, and she wanted me to read louder than the volume of the boombox, and it was really hard. And I remember doing that, but I think I eventually I did it.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't remember that.
But
Or I didn't
that's
know
like
about
one of my strongest memories with her. I don't know why.
So she really introduced us to sticker charts. We had every week we would go. She would set about 5 goals with you. You would come up with the goals together, and then we would work on it at home through the week with sticker charts. And then she one time did that cotton ball jar.
So just to go back a little bit, sticker charts are when you earn a sticker for, I don't know, completing a part of a goal. So maybe every time you wave to someone or every time you raise your hand in class, you would get a sticker. Obviously, it depends on what your goal is. And then at like a certain amount of stickers, you would get like a bigger prize.
Yeah, we used to have like a treasure chest, just with little whatever dollar items, and then the big gift would be like a Beanie Baby, a stuffy, something like that you really wanted.
Yeah, and then the cotton ball jar was like, I guess it didn't actually work because it was too big of a jar, but it was a jar, and I don't know what my goal was, but every time, I don't know, maybe it was every time I talked to someone.
I think that was near the
ball.
end. That was near the end of the therapy, so I think it was every time you spoke to somebody out in public.
Yeah.
You were to put a cotton ball in the jar, and then when the jar got full, we were going to take it back to her. But it was a big jar. It was like a 5-gallon jar.
It was like those ones that you have the cheese puffs in.
Yeah, so we should have started, or whatever, maybe with a smaller,
Smaller, more achievable goal.
Right.
But yeah, that's the idea behind those like reinforcement strategies they use in therapy. And you could totally implement that in your home or do it with, like collaborate with the teacher to do it. Maybe in private, because I never wanted something that was specific to me that would make me stand out from other kids. But I definitely had, like, I'm trying to think. I had a deal with my first grade teacher that if I did a reading, obviously this is after, like, a lot of progress, that if I did a reading at Mass, I would get to go out to Friendly's with her for ice cream. And I was able to do that.
We could have never imagined that you would have been able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And I think the only way you did was having Miss Kim as a teacher.
Yeah, because I liked her and I wanted to make her happy, I guess, or make her proud. Or
you trusted her and you felt safe in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I think I just want to say that she did this. I think it was, I'm not how far into the school year you were, a couple of months anyway. And, the kids know that you don't speak. And if you ever had a substitute, they would all let the substitute know. She doesn't speak. She doesn't talk. And I know Miss Kim said she just got tired of hearing it one day. So when it was said, she just stopped the class. And she said she told them Chelsea does talk. And she never wants to hear anyone say that again. And that when Chelsea wants to talk, she will talk. And that was kind of that. And so I think you really trusted her, and from that point on.
Yeah.
So grade 2, I think, is when we started medication.
So in grade 2, I started medication. I remember, like, being really silly when I first started taking it because it was too high of a dose. I had a few more friends by then, maybe 2 or 3 people that I would talk to, and when I started taking medication, I was, like, being silly in front of the whole class. I remember we had spelling bees in each classroom, so they would, like, find the best person in each classroom, and then they would go on to, like, the full school spelling bee. And I actually got kicked out of the spelling bee because I was being too crazy and, like, being silly. So I had to go sit down, which was a pretty big deal.
Well, I think we didn't start medication right away. You were in therapy for quite a while, and we were making some progress. I know one day you came home in 2nd grade, and you had uniforms, and you had on a yellow dress shirt, with your skirt, and you had something all down your arm, and I asked you what it was, and you told me that one of your friends had wiped ketchup from her french fries it was all down your sleeve, and you couldn't say anything, so you were covered in ketchup. And I couldn't believe that had happened to you. and that you were unable to say anything. And
That's really sad.
I don't know if I wrote a letter or what happened, but I know the little girl had written you an apology letter, and she was your friend, and I don't think they were trying to be mean, but whatever, it was funny. So I think after that, it wasn't just that one incident, but just everything. We just decided, let's give the medication a try with the therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So we did start low, which probably you don't remember that part. We started low, and it was like flicking a light switch, though, with you. I know they told us it could take a couple of months for the medicine to work, but with you, the day we gave it to you, whether it was just
Placebo?
you feeling, right, maybe feeling confident, and we told you it's not going to make you talk.
Mm-hmm.
We just said it's going to make you feel comfortable so you can do whatever you want to do. But there was one point in grade 2 when the dose, we upped it, and it was too high because you were being silly in school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the teacher called me, so we backed back down. But I definitely think for you, it was the right decision, even though we felt, we had mixed emotions about it. And they did tell us to keep you on it for 1 year so you could experience 1 full year of incidents like on medication. But we took you off, I think, after 8 months, just because I felt I wasn't totally comfortable with it. So I took you off. But I know looking back, I did regret not keeping you on for the full year. I think it's a very individual decision, and you have to do what you feel is right.
I think when I started talking more at school, people did have reactions at first. Like, they were all surprised that I did talk. And then I had, like, some of my close friends would, like, stick up for me, and they would say, like, oh, she always talks to me. She doesn't talk to you. And it was kind of like this weird, like, who could get me to talk competition, which is not fun.
Mm-hmm. But when you were little, all the kids wanted to be your friend. Like, you didn't speak, but everybody wanted to be your partner in school. Everyone wanted to, be friends with Chelsea. And then as you got a little bit older, I think it changed. And then people kind of felt like you were a little bit snobby, or, why weren't you talking? Maybe they thought you didn't like them. So 4th grade, you were having a lot of anxiety, and you had to do a lot of oral presentations. And so we met with the teacher at parent-teacher night. We explained everything to her. She was very understanding, told us how she also had anxiety, so not to worry. And it didn't really help.
Oh, I never thought of her as a nice teacher. She was, I don't know, she didn't seem to understand. She seemed like frustrated with me almost.
I know I was called to the school quite a few times for Chelsea fainting, and I'd have to go pick her up.
Yeah, I remember I would, like, make myself do presentations because it felt even worse to not do it, because then you stand out even more for not doing it. So I would make myself do some presentations, and I just remember, like, my vision going black and having to, like, sit on the floor. I never, like, fell and hit my head when I was fainting, which I feel like a lot of people think you just, like, fall on the ground, but I could, like, tell it was coming, so I would always sit down. It just looked like I was having, like, a panic attack, which I probably was.
I remember one time you would put your head down on your desk because you were going to faint, and then you got in trouble for that, the teacher. So you put your head back up, and then you passed out. And then I got called to come get you. So then I had to write a note to the teacher explaining that's why you were putting your head down on your desk.
Right.
And in the future, please, let you put your head down if it's because you feel faint.
Yeah. I remember, like, fainting too, and when you, like, finally open your eyes again and you can see people, everyone's in a circle around you, like, staring, and that made you want to faint again almost. Like,
oh no, poor Chelsea. Oh my God, that's awful. I can't imagine.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to going to the nurse's office, like, a lot whenever you're not feeling good. I felt like I ended up going to the bathroom more often to escape. I would get, like, physically sick with anxiety. And, of course, you don't want to, like, throw up in front or faint in front of everyone because that draws more attention to you. So I would always just try to go to the bathroom until it passed. And I remember, like, the teacher would have to send kids to go look for me because I would be gone for a long time. And then I just remember, like, being in the stall and, like, some kid that I, like, had never talked to would come in and be like, Chelsea. And I, like, wouldn't answer because I don't talk to them. And then they would go back and be like, oh, she wasn't in there. And then it would be, like, a big deal. Even just asking to go to the bathroom. So I think I would try not to even use the bathroom at school.
Yep. So, and that ended up being a problem.
Yes.
So Chelsea, because she was trying to hold it all day long, she ended up with a lot of UTIs, urinary tract infections. You know, it really is important to have a system set up with your teacher for you to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Whether you have a code, we did a few things with different teachers, and then some teachers just said, you know, Chelsea, just go whenever you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
But you said even that was hard because you had to get up in front of people.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people posting, like, using, like, a picture exchange system with their kids. So, like, I don't know, if they need the bathroom, they'll, like, hand over some card to a teacher instead of having to ask verbally, which I think works as long as the kid isn't, like, stigmatized by that, because I know that I wouldn't feel comfortable using that kind of system.
Yeah, we came up with putting, like, a chip, a token on top of your desk.
I was more comfortable with, like, secretive codes so that other kids wouldn't notice what was going on, even though they probably did. But
yeah, we also did a thing one year, I think, where you were putting your pencil up along the edge of your desk so the teacher would notice that you needed to go.
Yeah.
Just working out a private system with the teacher always worked for you.
Yeah, I think it's just, like, you're trying to promote, like, treating selective mutism and talking, but when it comes to, like, the bathroom, I think it's okay to start with, like, a nonverbal system just because of, like, medical complications that can come from holding your pee.
Right. Yeah.
Or I know some kids have accidents because they won't ask to go.
Yep.
Which can be even more embarrassing. So I stayed at that school up until 5th grade. Actually, 6th grade. I finished 6th grade before I switched to another school. By that point, I was talking more. I'd say I was doing okay with talking to other kids, like, one-on-one, and I was doing some participation in class, like answering questions, but presentations were definitely, like, the hardest thing. Like, whenever I would have to read in front of the class, that was harder.
Yeah, so you switched to a school in the next town over, and that was basically, you asked to switch. You wanted to have a fresh start with new kids, where nobody knew.
I didn't have the label of not talking at the new school, so I could start talking without any, like, kind of reaction from other kids. And I remember, like, when I was switching, some of the kids from my old school were going there too, and I was afraid they would tell, like, other kids that I, like, don't talk, which I was trying to get a fresh start.
And that was a good switch. That was a good decision for you. You made new friends, you did sleepovers.
Yeah, I think I was ready to start over. That was only a 2-year school, so it wasn't like I was going into, like, a school that already had, I don't know, like, everyone was starting new in 7th grade. It wasn't like I was the new kid or anything. So I think that was helpful. I think it would be hard to switch to another school where you're
the new kid.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that before.
It's, like, unusual for a school to only be 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, I think you did gym. I think you participated in gym class there also, which we didn't really talk about gym, but that was always a problem. But I think once you switched right away, you participated in all the gym classes.
Gym has always been, like, my least favorite subject in school. In high school, too. It's just, like, I feel like it's really embarrassing, like, having to do physical things in front of other people. I feel like I would get made fun of sometimes for, like, how I would do things, so I was just, like, too afraid to try anything in gym class.
Yeah, I remember getting phone calls that Chelsea wasn't participating in gym class. So we had talked about that, but then it became, and the teacher was okay with that a little bit. She was willing to let you sit out in the beginning, but then it became a problem because then all the other students wanted to sit out with you under the tree also.
I remember one day. It was like more than half the class was just sitting with me. It looked like a protest. But it kind of ruined it for me. I was kind of sad that I didn't get to sit out anymore. The new school, I had fun in 7th and 8th grade. I feel like I had friends and I felt normal for the most part, even though I still had anxiety, but it wasn't like crippling to the point where I couldn't do things.
And you did participate, we didn't really talk about that, but you did participate in, was it Girl Guides? I'm going to say it wrong because of Canada.
That's Canadian.
Girl Scouts.
She didn't mention that, but she is Canadian.
Yeah, so you were in Girl Scouts for, I don't know, 1 or 2 years?
I don't know if I made it that long.
Maybe 1 year.
1 year. I remember hiding in the bathroom during Girl Scouts, too. Did I sell cookies?
I think the family bought cookies.
That would be really hard to do, I think. I think by, like, 7th and 8th grade, I technically did not have selective mutism. I guess I would say I just had, like, pretty bad social anxiety. So I started high school in a public high school, which was kind of an adjustment. It was a lot bigger than my other schools, too. I was in the band, so that kind of was like a warm-up before school, because they have band camp during the summer before school starts. I met a lot of people through band that way, and that made, like, going to school easier.
I just remember showing up with you for band camp, and you couldn't get out of the car the first 2 days, I think. I think the first day we may have actually went home. And then the second day, you were fine till we got there. And then in the parking lot, you were, like, pale, sweaty.
Yeah.
You had to lay the chair back. You thought you were going to faint. And the band director came over and talked to me. We were able to get you out of the car, and you just laid down, like, in the back of his truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then he drove you over and told me to go, that you'd be fine.
That's crazy.
And I think maybe we restarted medication. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I don't really remember. But you start to feel more confident when you're on medication, and then it feels like you're cured, I guess. And then things just feel harder once you're going through transitions, especially because you're in stressful situations. They're stressful for anyone, but if you have anxiety, it's going to be harder.
But I think joining band for high school was great for you. It worked out. Just gave you your own little group.
I played French horn and clarinet.
They're kind of like a family within the high school.
Yeah, we did. There was a lot of band practices, and they really, like, tried to promote, like, the band room as, like, a safe space for everyone. And we did, like, band trips, and you just became, like, really close with everyone because we would go. I think we went to, like, Philadelphia. We went to Disney one year. Every year there would be a big trip, and they were always really fun.
So how did you do through high school? Do you remember presentations?
How do you feel? So I remember I was doing pretty well. Gym class is always, like, stressful. I don't know. And if I had classes where I didn't know anyone, it was, like, really scary, and I would kind of just, like, keep to myself. I actually was having pretty bad panic attacks in high school. I think around the time I got put in AP English. And English was always, like, my best subject because I always felt like I can, like, express myself better through writing than anything, and I loved reading. So I was put in AP English, which was, like, really good. But I remember going into that class my first day, and we had to do presentations the very first day, and it was, like, a surprise. Like, nobody knew that was coming. I just remember that classroom was, like, used for the drama club, so the desks were up on, like, risers, so, like, it was like you were looking out at, like, a big audience. But I just, like, panicked, and I felt like in addition to gym class that year, I was having, like, panic attacks, and I think I was, like, throwing up and, like, fainting. And I remember sitting in the hallway to avoid falling on the ground. I would just, like, sit down in the hallway. I ended up leaving that class, though, like, within the first week, and I went down to the I don't know what it's called, like, the regular level of English, and I actually really liked that teacher. She was, like, young and she thought I was like such a good writer, or at least she told me I was like a really good writer. I don't think I had selective mutism in high school, but then like under certain circumstances, the anxiety is like so high that I probably couldn't speak. You have to come up with coping skills to deal with anxiety in order to get through things like that. I definitely did like deep breathing, which I wish I figured out like earlier on in life, because it's just calm. It literally slows down your like heart rate and helps you stop feeling so panicked.
And basically that's breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth and making the exhale last as long as you can, or counting to 10 while you exhale.
And like holding the breath.
I feel they don't really teach a lot of coping mechanisms.
Now I do like meditation, not regularly. I know how to calm down now, I guess. If I'm feeling anxious, I can breathe deeply and try to challenge negative thoughts. Do you think selective mutism affected my grades at all, or were people...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some teachers just didn't get it. Some teachers wouldn't allow for participation. There was always a participation grade, and that was always like 10% of your grade. So I just feel like there was no winning in that department.
And I don't think you should be punished for things you can't control.
Right, and I guess now there's 504s and IEPs, but maybe partly because you were in a private school, but they didn't really have any services. No special ed programs. It was really just up to the individual teacher and how willing they were to accommodate you.
We'll just go over some like key things that definitely helped my progress, and I think medication was a big one. It definitely made me feel more comfortable, and it just like reduced like, symptoms that were making it harder to talk.
And what do you feel like those symptoms were?
Just like my heart pounding and being all sweaty, and like physically it felt like I couldn't produce speech when I felt like that. I've had therapists talk about how like with anxiety your body just goes into like fight, flight, or freeze, which I just learned about freeze. It used to always just be fight or flight.
Yep.
Like back in the day there used to be like predators and people would have to like fight the predator or flee. They talk about freeze now, which is when your body literally freezes, which I think is what happens with selective mutism as like a defense mechanism, and you're unable to talk. Rabbits do this, so if there's like a predator, which rabbits have a lot of predators, they'll just freeze and pretend that they don't exist, and they try to blend in with their environment. So I kind of think of it like that. Like you don't have control over it, but that's how your body responds to anxiety. And I think medication like took away that response kind of, so I could just think more clearly.
Not that this is related, but I just kind of thought of this. It's kind of weird that you say that, because when we took you to Children's Hospital for your evaluation, do you remember we went to the gift shop? We felt so bad for you, so we took you to the gift shop and we bought you a stuffed toy, and it was a rabbit.
Oh, that's
Remember
funny.
that brown rabbit?
He's actually black and white.
Oh, okay. Well, I know we bought you
I
a
remember
rabbit.
him. We probably still have him.
So it's just funny that you say that.
Yeah.
That we chose a rabbit.
I'm like a rabbit. And then I think what I definitely should have had better anxiety coping skills. I think I would just get into the situation, and then people would have to get me out of my panic attack, or save me from my fainting and throwing up and stuff. I didn't have a plan in place. Now when I start to feel anxious, I recognize it right away, and I can start taking deep breaths, or just thinking about other things. And I think it's important to teach kids how to do that from a young age. If you're thinking oh, everyone's looking at me and everyone's judging me, you're supposed to challenge those thoughts. Even if you don't fully believe it, just challenging them opens up the possibility that you might be wrong and you might be thinking irrationally.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm.
But I think for little kids who are diagnosed with selective mutism, I would teach deep breathing and maybe meditation, I don't know. But when you have those skills and you have a plan in place in your head, and you practice those even when you're not anxious, I think when you can identify that you're starting to feel anxious, you can use those to feel better and get through it. Communication with teachers is huge, and having a plan with the school is very important.
Yep, and every year I would recommend starting off right from the get-go, even before school starts, with some sort of like a handout or from an official resource, because I think that it's more validating than just a note from a parent.
I have some resources too that we can put in the show notes. I think, well, you can't expect like everyone to know what selective mutism is. True. Especially when I was in school. No, like it was unheard of, and I think there's more awareness now, but it's still not a lot. So it's really important to educate teachers. I've even had therapists with like master's degree in psychology that I have had to explain selective mutism to them because they've never heard of it. These are the resources I found. SelectiveMutism.org has a resource for teachers called I'm an Educator, and it just gives like tips on how to interact with kids and make school more comfortable. And then Stephen Kurtz, he developed his own therapy for selective mutism, but he has a website called Kurtz Psychology. It's KURTZ psychology.com, and he has a free e-course about selective mutism that if your teacher's willing, it would be super helpful for them to look at that.
And I don't think, we didn't mention, but you actually went to Brave Buddies camp with Dr. Kurtz to volunteer. I think you were in high school.
And that Brave Buddies camp was in preparation for going back to school.
True.
So I volunteered for that, and it was, they set it up like a classroom to get little kids with selective mutism ready for going back to school and like participating in class. It was really awesome getting to meet other people. I met a lot of volunteers that had selective mutism as a kid. It was so cool to like see kids who had selective mutism like progress just in 1 week of like an evidence-based therapy. It was really cool.
So yeah, he was part of CMI, but now he's got his own practice.
So definitely, like his whole website is full of resources for teachers and parents. So I would definitely check out his website.
And Kurtz for the Canadian people is KURTZ.
Oh,
psychology.
We're Canadian friendly. We just looked at our stats and we're on the Canadian chart on iTunes, so we're excited. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you would explain selective mutism to a teacher and to classmates. I would say that it's like extreme anxiety. It's not just shyness. It's almost like you're being paralyzed and the words can't come out no matter how hard you try. I would emphasize that it's not stubbornness, it's extreme fear.
Right, it's not a choice. You literally cannot speak in that moment.
I would really emphasize building a trusting relationship, of course. It's going to take a lot of time. It's not just going to get better one day. And that you have to be patient with a kid who has selective mutism.
I used to try also before the school year started or at the end of a grade, I would speak to the school and really try to have them pick a teacher that was accommodating and kind. Biggest thing is a kind teacher for the following year. Rather than waiting to see what class she was put in and then seeing if the teacher would work with me, I'd always kind of put that out there at grading.
I don't know how you would explain it to classmates because I never wanted them to know I had like some diagnosis or something.
And I think, if the kids are all acknowledging it and saying it all the time, then I think it's okay to bring it up, and maybe even with you not in the classroom.
I think I would not want to be in the classroom.
Yeah, maybe just to have a talk with the classroom when you're not there, but just to acknowledge it. I think all in all, just over all the years, the biggest factor was the teacher. Having a accommodating teacher that would work with you.
I just want to say that it seems like you're never gonna like get past it when you have selective mutism. Like I never could see myself getting a job, especially working with people, and now I literally do that. I couldn't picture myself going to college, and I ended up going to college in another country. It takes like so much effort, and it's not like an easy thing to do, but you have to be strong and push yourself when you know that you can do certain things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tools out there. You really have to tap into them and use them.
Right, and it's okay to ask for help.
Right, that's huge, because it's very tough to ask for help or accept help.
And therapy's normal. Everyone should go to therapy. It doesn't make you weird.
No, and it doesn't show, weakness. I mean,
It shows strength because you're willing to challenge yourself.
hopefully we've made you not feel so alone. Hopefully Chelsea's sharing her experiences perhaps resonate with you, and she's given you a few resources to tap into.
And I feel like people, now that selective mutism is more like talked about online, I'm just like amazed by how people who have selective mutism, even like little like kindergartners, are so like resilient, and you see them like they push themselves to do crazy things that seem like impossible, even when it's really hard, and it's like super inspiring.
And you've had a couple of kids reach out to you about the podcast.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear.
Yeah, it's been
People's
great.
stories.
I really would love for kids to listen, and I just think they wouldn't feel so alone. Like if you had this when you were little.
Right, I think it would be really cool, because I felt like I was the only person, because I didn't know anyone else who had selective mutism. It was really cool when I met other people who had it too, and I think it would be awesome for kids to know that they're not alone, and that other people have come out on the other side.
You've done great. We're so proud of you.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to another episode of Out Loud, the Selective Mutism podcast. We want you to post a back to school picture. I'm going to post mine on Instagram and Facebook, and I want people to post a picture of their back to school picture and tag us on Instagram or on Facebook, and if you do that, we can give you a shout out on the next episode. I think it would be fun to see people's back to school pictures. Mine is embarrassing, so don't worry. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and download episodes, and make sure you follow us on our social media accounts, Facebook and Instagram. We love all the interactions that we're having on there. You're helping spread awareness by talking about selective mutism with us online and sharing our podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you about preschool next.